the people who know stuff about blower door testing and building science, it's like field of dreams. There's just so much opportunity to save massive amounts of energy and to make massive improvements in comfort. So people just feel uncomfortable all the time because it's so drafty all the time. And the performance of windows and walls is so bad that they just feel cold because of radiant comfort.
Hey there, Sam here with the Flow Lab. Before we begin, I want to tell you about a free ebook that we have called What If Houses Came with Manuals? It's a practical resource that shows you how to think about the whole house as a system and not just treating the symptoms. You'll learn about blower door testing, pressure diagnostics, and HVAC analysis. We're sure that this guide will level up your testing game. The link is in the description below.
Welcome to the Flow Lab, the podcast where we dive deep into the science of building performance and HVAC innovations. Today we bring you another insightful episode aimed to enhance your knowledge and expertise in the field. Joining us are your co-hosts, Ben Walker, co-CEO of Retrotec, and Sam Myers, a renowned building science specialist and Retrotec trainer. Together, they bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to ensure our discussions are both informative and engaging. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to enter the Flow Lab, where we'll explore the world of building performance. Let's get started.
It's like a fairly mild climate overall, really, right? It's like that's the region, really. It's just kind of fairly mild, kind of like in the Pacific Northwest or something like that, where people maybe don't have energy conservation on the top of their minds because they don't have to deal with the extremes.
It's pretty mild here. In Sydney, where I lived until this last year, we moved down to Melbourne, but lived in Sydney for almost 10 years. And it's pretty nice there most of the time. It does get hot and it does get chilly, but it never freezes. So it's not like New York or Massachusetts, where I lived for most of my life. So I think that just means people think, it's fine. So place I lived in Sydney, the last place I lived, just block walls, masonry walls, and single glazed aluminum framed windows.
Oh boy.
That was not much of an improvement over the one that was built in 1920, so like almost 80 years before. Again, masonry with single glazed windows. So like 100 years have passed, and really the thermal performance hasn't improved that much.
It's kind of disappointing, really.
Well, so interesting learning about codes have changed and evolved. So things like they didn't have a national construction code until I gotta check my facts or my history here, but I think until early 2000s wasn't a national construction code. Like until then there were state codes, which is the same thing in the US. Like until the International Residential Code, there wasn't a national code. There still isn't a national code. And it's essentially what the National Construction Code is. It's sort of a model code that states can opt to adopt a specific version of it. Like they're encouraged to go with the latest one, but
it's not really
sounding familiar.
Yeah. So the longer I'm here, the more I realize the politics actually are kind of similar.
Yeah, oh, it's interesting.
So what's kind of the if Australians seem to be just kind of carefree about maybe how their buildings feel, what's usually the driving factor to make them better?
Well, for me, absolutely, I would just like to live in a comfortable house.
Sure.
It's just that would be great. So we're renting this house because real estate here is nuts. You can't believe how expensive it is. So there's no way we can afford to buy a house. We have to rent, and the houses we rent are just so bad. Like I tested this one. In negative pressure, it was permeability of about 30 air changes per hour, permeability of about 30.
Oh, wow.
Positive pressure.
That's really bad.
Positive pressure, it was 34. You know why? Because the skylight in the bathroom would lift out of its socket and leak more in the positive direction. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Nuts.
Wow. That's completely uncontrollable at that point. I mean, wow.
Yeah, exactly. Like the house I grew up in was built in like the 1912 era, and so then similar results, but there's actually a section of the floor missing in the kitchen too, right? So that's like it explains it all. But if you're in a modern construction, you would hope to see nothing like those numbers.
So this afternoon, I'm going to do a workshop with some builders. We're building a very large development. This afternoon, I'm going to do some training with some builders to show them some basics about what are some basic ways to make their houses more airtight. And I'm not really going to touch too much on thermal bridging. There's a lot to be said about that, but a lot of that is design. But the air leaks that we're finding in these houses, it's big stuff like bath fans that have no dampers on them, which they should by the code, or like, do you guys know the thermal bypass checklist from Energy Star?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all
Yep.
about using solid blocking to block off joist bays and things like that, like block the big holes.
Open chases. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff is really common here. And so for the first many years that I was here, I was looking around like, oh my God, look, it's just so bad. But then as we are organizing and getting closer to getting something into regulations with airtightness and airtightness testing here, the more I think the people who know stuff about blower door testing and building science, it's like the field of dreams. There's just so much opportunity to save massive amounts of energy and to make massive improvements in comfort. So people just feel uncomfortable all the time because it's so drafty all the time. And the performance of windows and walls is so bad that they just feel cold because of radiant comfort. There's just so many easy things that can be done, at least with air leakage, to just really massively improve things.
What's like the common heating source in Australia for what do most of the homes have there really?
Most were until very recently using gas, but in some areas gas is being phased out. It might even be a state initiative in the state of Victoria, which is the southernmost state on the mainland in Australia.
They call it a province or something. Yeah.
The state of Victoria could ban new gas connections. It's debated whether that's going to help or whether that's too soon. But so heat pumps are becoming much more common here. And so electricity will be the fuel source. And they're putting up more and more
that's
renewables
when
all the time.
Airtightness becomes a little bit more important then, huh?
Interesting time. I mean, I think they recently just had an election, and the Labour government, which is the progressive government here, which is very energy efficiency and improving renewables, they were reelected resoundingly. So hopefully we'll keep on this progress of improving energy efficiency, improving codes, because as much as we don't want it to be, codes are always a little bit political.
Yeah,
Sure.
correct.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yep.
Should be based on just,
Science.
the physics of it all, right?
Yep.
But no, it's, we got to make it a lot more complicated than that.
Yep.
Is electricity in Australia a lot more expensive than North America, or about the same? Or
here it's about 30 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Those are Australian cents. So you think about purchasing power parity. I don't know. We'll see. What an Australian dollar would buy in Australia is different than what an American dollar will buy in America.
I see you have your I Love New York mug, and you started this building science journey in New York.
Appropriate to be talking about this. My first job was in the Energy Star Homes program in Massachusetts. And you guys hear that right now, who knows, by the time this podcast is live, something will have happened, and this will be decided, that the Energy Star Homes program will still exist or it may not exist anymore. Don't know.
Yeah, it's a big topic of conversation right now for sure.
But that's where I got my start, doing 3 days a week, probably in the field, doing testing and inspections.
Yeah.
And then.
So you were a HERS rater?
HERS rater, yeah. And then 2 days a week in the office doing planned takeoffs and energy models. So using REM rate.
Yep.
No, sure,
I'm also a recovering HERS rater. So I did a lot of very similar work whenever I first started out too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd love to touch base.
I remember that world very well.
Yeah, I want to talk to the ResNet guys about how we can team up and just share good ideas between us, because there's a lot of stuff that times have definitely changed. When I first started, I was using Energy Conservatory Model 3 fan Magnehelic gauge.
Oh yeah.
Which it's kind of cool, and when you tilt them on the side, the they behave differently
Oh,
than
it shifts by like 25 Pascal or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe
because they use the bellows inside. It's just so neat to learn about all that stuff. Which when you first start, there's just so much to know, so much to learn about how all this stuff works.
And all the math that goes into it to get, a flow from a pressure and
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I got my start here at Retrotec in 1995 with those Magnehila gauges and stuff, and worked on one of the first digital manometers here and stuff. But it's always with that, and then you tap on it, and then the needle would move several pascals and stuff, and then it's how like the times have changed with the accuracy requirements when you're talking about like 10th of a Pascal now. I think back at those Magnehila
the thickness
gauges,
of the needle will
yeah,
put you out there. Yeah,
or your angle that you're looking
No
at it,
chance.
your viewing angle and everything.
Yeah.
So, there has been
So-
some improvements, that's for sure.
Yeah, to do your baseline, you would use a screwdriver.
Yeah, zero it out, your
To
auto zero.
Zero it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, ResNet puts on. They've started hosting their annual conference again, past couple of years, and they do put on a really nice event.
Yeah.
So if you it's usually at the beginning of the year in January or February. I have to look to see what 26 is going to be. I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you can make it back over,
Yeah, definitely would like to because
it would be a good one to attend.
Because there's a lot of good things so when I moved to Australia from New York, I was looking around for people that wanted to do a database because that's and so I was searching airtightness databases, and I'd find Max Sherman from Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. So they had databases going, but they weren't publicly available, and who knows what format they were in, and they weren't accessible to anyone. But ATTMA had this online tool called ATTMA Lodgement, where these days all tests are done not with Magnehilic, but with a digital gauge, and it's all very finely tracked and recorded. So we have this amazing tool to just do so much quality control just by uploading the result digitally. And then, so you can do quality control in the testing. You can learn so much stuff about what's going on.
Building stock,
Yeah. And so I asked, I just sent an email. I said, can I join ATTMA? And Barry Cope said, sure. So I was the first one down here to join ATTMA, and then every other tester that I met, and I was trying to meet them all, joined ATTMA. So we all joined, and then it grew over time. So now we have, between Australia and New Zealand, have more than 100 registered testers. They've all undergone training and exams.
That's excellent.
Yeah, what year was it that you joined ATTMA?
So that was, I think, 2016. I think.
Okay.
Or maybe 2015 to 2016, I think. So I moved here from New York in 2015. So yeah, it's been just over 10 years.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I was in Massachusetts for a few years, doing Energy Star homes, and then shuffled around, and I want to do something else. I moved to New York and loved every minute of the 7 years I was there, and worked in bigger buildings. Got away from doing testing on, just day-to-day testing, but then doing some cool stuff with Department of Energy we had some contracts for NREL with doing research on, one of the things was ventilation. We were trying to make ventilation systems work better so that we could reduce the overall ventilation rate, because I think a lot of times we would overventilate our buildings to compensate for the fact that the ventilation wasn't working very well. So like at the top of the building, the units would be overventilated, and the bottom of the building, they just weren't getting enough. But if you could improve the ventilation distribution, you could make sure that everyone got adequate ventilation and then reduce the overall rate, so you get some energy savings. So stuff like that. Also trying to figure out how does air flow through apartments. So doing a lot of compartment testing. And from that, we built up a database at Stephen Winter Associates, where I worked. Really awesome company that I hope you get in touch with. Over some years, we had amassed 600 blower door test results, and then there was a chance to get something into New York State Building Code for airtightness testing, and we argued that they should allow for apartments doing testing of individual apartments. And this might be a hot topic for you guys to discuss with people like Elliot Benor of Building. He's a pretty awesome dude, and he has the view that you should test the overall building enclosure, not just individual apartments.
At one time, yeah.
And I understand that. And I think what we came to was basically, I said testing individual apartments for their compartmentation is very useful from an indoor air quality point of view.
Yeah,
So you can
absolutely.
make sure that you're not getting smells and pollutants from your neighbors, and also
Sure.
reduce stack effect and improve individual
Yep.
ventilation system function. So there's a lot of reasons. It's also safer to be well separated from your neighbors in terms of
Yeah.
fire. So many benefits to that,
Yeah.
but it's only indirectly related to overall energy use, compartmentation. So
Sometimes there's non-energy benefits are more important to focus on, especially when safety is involved.
maybe the solution, I think we agreed, should do both apartment testing and overall building testing. And someday the buildings will be tight enough that we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that because in a lot of cases, the top level of the apartment, that top level of that unit isn't the air barrier. It may be above that. You may have like some kind of weird attic between, that ceiling and then what's actually your air barrier keeping the outdoors out. So it makes sense to do both depending on how that building is designed.
So the thing we're working on right now is a proposal for change for the National Construction Code in 2028, which is very soon, which is to mandate continuous ventilation for apartments. So there's already something in the code that says if you test and you find that your apartments are tighter than a permeability of 5 cubic meters per hour per square meter, which is about 5-ish air changes per hour, then you have to add continuous ventilation. Well, the way that's worded is like if you test and it's tight, then you have to add ventilation. It's sort of like, well, by that time it's too late to add ventilation, so you better not test.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the builder might interpret that as like, okay, well, it can't be tighter than 5, so
Right.
we don't have to deal with adding ventilation.
Yeah,
make
exactly.
it leakier.
We deal with that in
Discouraging. Yeah.
Florida has a similar code like that to where like builders interpret that as like, oh, well, it can't be tighter than 3. We have to put this in. So
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. So what we're trying to do is take that optional sort of disincentive to do testing and optional ventilation and make it just mandatory. Because what we're finding is, hey guys, we've done testing on now thousands of apartments across Australia, and the permeability of these is way tighter than we want it to be if there's no mandatory ventilation right now. So it's like in one building, I did some diagnostics on a building 2 weeks ago, and they were having major depressurization problems because when you turn on the range hood, they're getting minus 270 pascals of pressure.
Oh
It's
wow.
it's
Oh
actually
man.
hard to close the door
wow, oh
Yeah, that's
man,
crazy. Oh man.
because there's so airtight and there's so little makeup air that they really suck. And so their apartments here, it's not a fault of the builder. Like the builders, they use good doors, well sealed for acoustics and fire. Good job. They've got a great performing facade. Good job. You've got good fire separations for safety reasons. Good job. Now, you're kind of messed up because you don't have adequate makeup air and you haven't sort of looked at this from a design perspective years ago. So yeah, we just need low volume continuous ventilation, which has been in a lot of codes in North America for a long time.
So what's usually your ventilation strategy for that? Are you guys using just small ERVs, unit to unit?
And now that it's just intermittent or occupant controlled exhaust fans, often on a timer. So there's like a 20-minute run timer that's pretty common.
So just exhaust ventilation. Gotcha.
Yep. Occupant
Okay.
controlled. I won't say intermittent because that would mean like scheduled, but
It's on a timer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, I remember when I tested a lot of apartments, one of the challenges was in compartmentalized testing was how they assembled the 1 hour firewall on the common walls. And a lot of times they would use resilient channel because it was cheaper. And so that would fur out the drywall from the studs about 1/2 inch. Well, I mean, that makes sense, slowing down fire horizontally, but usually fire likes to go up. And so when you do that, you have that air gap and there's nothing requiring them to cap it at the top. I just feel I don't see how that's going to be effective. But we had to make them pass their blower door test. We had to make them cut little strips of drywall to cap it and seal it at the top. So, and it was tedious, but that was really the only way that they could pass with that. So, yeah, there's definitely some challenges depending on, how they have to maneuver those firewalls.
So one of the things I would love to talk to you guys about is, Sam, you already mentioned, well, in Florida, this is how this is their strategy, and I talked about Massachusetts and Pacific Northwest, and California has different approaches to things. Around the entire U.S. and in Canada and in Australia, we're all doing things a little bit differently. We're all
Yeah.
the building science people are really after the same thing, which is better performance, better health, reduced energy use, better building durability. So we really need to find ways to collaborate better, trade good ideas.
Yeah, I
So
agree. And it changes from climate to climate
yeah,
too, right? So like depending on like what you're up against, especially like a big factor for us in the States is like those of us on the East Coast deal with humidity, those on the West Coast not so much. And so a lot of times there's like arguments on what's better, and I was like, well, it depends on where you are.
yep.
So
Do you guys know of any online fora that we could use? So I started something, atmaforum.org, encouraging people to use it. So I'm pretty much the only guy who posts on it. But if
sure.
someone asks stuff like, "What do I do?" I give instructions on how to do that, or how do I, if I have this problem with my tests on a windy day, what do I do to improve the correlation? Things like that.
Yeah, like a centralized communication platforms, like
Yeah.
outside of just like Facebook groups, which is kind of usually where this conversation kind of happen from one
Yeah,
person.
that's where I was gonna allude to. There's a bunch of Facebook groups, but the ones that I'm aware of that are really active are really U.S. specific. Like for example, the first one where it all started in the U.S. was HVAC School, which is really the first HVAC podcast that started by Brian Orr. And then some kind of spun off of that were more specific towards building science. Like my buddy Jenry Garcia in Miami, Florida, started his own group that's very focused on home
Mhm.
performance, and it stays pretty active. And a lot of people chime in and go there for help and things like that. But as far as commercial buildings go, there's really not a forum to go to. It's really more of just conversations that happen on LinkedIn that I see for a large building, but it just depends on who you follow. There's not really a collective space for people to go to like that. But yeah, maybe it's time that one of those gets started.
I should join some of these Facebook groups. I'd also like to find people doing stuff related to energy rating and say ResNet,
Yeah.
because some of these things I like. I don't know what is common for buildings in Florida are getting tighter. What do they use for their ventilation strategy? Can you tell me what
Sure.
does a common builder use for ventilation?
In Florida, it could be a number of things. For mechanical ventilation, if you get down below you have to be below 7 air changes per hour. But if you're below 3, then you have to have mechanical ventilation. So there's this window in between 3 and 7 where you don't have to have it. But if you are, below 3, then you do. And so it can't just be an exhaust fan, right? It has to be, it has to be by ASHRAE 62.2.
Uh-huh.
So that means having either a duct off the return that is filtered, that has an air cycler on it, or maybe a ventilating dehumidifier like the ones made by Santa Fe, or you can have an ERV, balanced ventilation like that. So usually we'll see a combination of the two. A lot of the times, what I'm seeing a lot of contractors do now is go the route of using the ventilating dehumidifier because they're killing two birds with one stone.
Hmm.
Because these new, more efficient heat pumps, they're great. They're energy efficient. They can handle the sensible load, but the coils don't get as cold as the older, more inefficient stuff did. So they don't do as good of a job as removing humidity. But if you pair one with a dehumidifier, they work great. And then if you can pull in your outdoor air, filtering it with a MERV 13 at the same time, you're kind of covering all your bases with those two pieces of equipment. So we see that a lot.
Okay.
Um,
Because here it's
so
ducted systems are a lot less common. Like basically
yeah,
when I
that's all we have.
if I do a duct tightness test here, people are like, what are you doing? What is that?
Yeah.
What's that noodle you're attaching to my duct?
What are you doing to my system?
Yeah. And so it's really really weird here. I mean they do have ducted systems with really really bad ideas for how to build them. Say floor joists as a plenum, but like
Oh
Mm.
yeah,
an
yeah.
empty wall is supposed to be the ductwork, and it's
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah, I
Like,
We see that in some older houses, and yeah, it's not a good way to do
yeah.
it. It doesn't work.
So anyway, a lot of them are doing heat pumps now for the little heating load they have in, say, Northern Australia. They'll The heat pump will do both AC and a little bit of heating they need, no problem. But like you're saying, they're not doing enough dehumidification. So
Right.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So you're mainly seeing ductless heat pumps.
I could say I am, but that's only because it's just me. I'm not. I'm only one guy, so I'm not a good gauge of what they do. I don't live in Northern Australia, so
Yeah, that's that was a topic for us too, like in these really small, maybe like Habitat for Humanity houses or something like that, where maybe if a ductless system will handle the load, what do you do about humidity? Well, Santa Fe made this dehumidifier that actually fits in between stud bays that gets installed into a wall, and then has a condensate line, can drain to outside, and then that way you don't have to worry about sticking something in an attic or running ductwork to something. You can put it in a central place like a hallway. If you have transfer grills or jumper ducts going into bedrooms, things can kind of communicate a little bit better if they didn't. But it depends on who you ask. Like for me, I think like if you have a house with bedrooms that have doors that close and people close them, you got to have a good way to distribute that air. Otherwise, you're just going to have temperature imbalances throughout.
I was going to ask you guys, how do you, as manufacturers and distributors of equipment, how do you keep track of the state of regulations across all 50 states? Like, which states require blower door testing?
It's tough.
Like, is there any way to do it? I
A
mean,
lot of times,
there's that IECC
well,
map that's updated,
which we do reference and everything, but you still like
just
as things
because it's
evolve,
required doesn't mean it's being enforced.
and also just because
And
it's right, like some states might adopt the IECC 2015 or something, and then
yeah,
strike out that clause that says you need to do blower door testing.
forecast. Yeah,
I think there's some different avenues that we rely on. Some people will post something about it on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, like, "Hey, this is coming." We're like, "Oh, wow, okay, that's the first time I've heard of that." Or sometimes, we'll get a call in from a customer that says, "Hey, like we have this new building official who's requiring us to do this thing. I understand you guys make that." Like, "Oh, okay, that's good to know." So sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's announced, we hear about it before time. There's a clear date. So it just depends on the state. Sometimes it depends on just a certain jurisdiction within a state. Sometimes it's split up more granular than that. Sometimes it's just whatever, what that building inspector wants to enforce and what they don't. And especially in these really rural areas where it's just kind of scattered. So
Yeah,
it's really hard to constantly keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on. But, a lot of the times our customers help us out when they need something.
yeah, and things will be different. So if I talk about ATTMA and that being adopted from the UK, in the UK they build maybe 150,000 homes a year, and they have regulations there that 100% of dwellings are supposed to be tested, which is pretty impressive. And Australia builds maybe 150 to 200,000 units a year as well. So similar size of number of units being built, but this is an awfully big country. Much, 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 much bigger than the UK. So most of the population, almost all of it, is concentrated in a few large cities and then a few satellite cities around it. So basically a scrape along the southeast edge of the continent, and then a little fuzz on the west edge of the continent. That's where most of the people live, and there's very few people that actually live in the center of the country. So I probably shouldn't take the geographic constraint as like a showstopper that we can't do it because it's just so big. But it is a challenge.
You guys have land to develop on. I mean, there's no shortage of that. I mean, the UK, I mean, they have significantly less. So it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's, not as much to keep track of, where you are compared to where we are, as far as like what's going on. with our 50 states. But
Yes, 13 times as many people in the US as Australia, something like that. You guys do have similar climates that we do here. I mean, we have truly tropical climates in the very far north, but actually very few people live there. And you have really dry climates like we have here. So sometimes Australia, it's very common for Australians to say, "Oh, mate, it's different down here." Not really. And there are all these problems of dehumidification or dryness, like all those things are seen somewhere in North America. Absolutely. So um, we really should be trying to borrow as much as we can from more advanced industries and more advanced building codes. So that's where I really do want to encourage trading. I'm really glad to be on this chat with you guys too.
so
Oh, straight.
for homeowners that are in Australia, if they're having some kind of issue that they want to fix that's performance related, whether if it's energy bills or comfort or humidity, who's the go-to person to call that they know of? I mean, are energy auditors kind of known, or are they just going to call an HVAC contractor and hope for the best?
There are some energy auditors. It's something that can be improved as well.
Sure.
So do a deep dive on this, but the energy assessment or energy audit way of doing things here is very far behind North America, like pretty sadly far behind. The way of accounting for how airtight a house is to just go around and look for leaks and things and sort of each like each light gets assigned a certain amount of air leakage and each window and things like that. It's like, you serious? You
Yeah, because
could,
that's where the big problems are.
yeah. And then things like I
Yeah,
say, like, you could just open up the return grill and see if there's a duct there,
just a gaping
or
hole.
if you can actually see the roof if you look up, which is really common. And that's
Yeah,
like 100 times more than the amount of air that's leaking through the individual LED light fixtures downlights. So
yeah. That's why I was just curious of what the general awareness is over there for homeowners, because here, like if someone's having an issue like that, they call an HVAC contractor who usually has no idea what a blower door is, or how the building envelope even interacts with an HVAC system, or doesn't. They're thinking about, oh, well, this is an opportunity for me to sell a new system, and a lot of the times we run into that. And so I didn't know if it was a similar struggle to where you are, where as far as like advocacy for this kind of thing,
no,
or
absolutely, it's tough, and it's probably going to get worse because there's lots of incentives to rip out ducted systems here. So I would love it actually if they ripped out the evaporative cooler system here and put in some split systems. That would be great because then we could just seal all that up, just take the duct system out of the equation. What that means is they don't even get rid of the old unit. Like there's so many, if you walk around this neighborhood, it's a nice neighborhood. Houses, like the median house price is like uh, easily a million, like sales price is 1.2, $1.4 million common for right around here. But you just look at these and they have old evaporative coolers that are defunct, not being used. You have through wall ACs poking out everywhere, and then old like 80% efficient gas furnace, and then they also have mini splits as well. But they just leave all the existing equipment in place, and then including the ductwork. It's like because there's government incentives to install heat pumps, and so we want to electrify. Go ahead, electrify everything. Yeah, good. I'm for that, but let's also not forget the big opportunities that we're missing here. So
yeah, just keep slapping band-aids on it until it stops bleeding.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm absolutely think that's one of the things that's happening is we're sort of looking for the quick fix, where throw the money, just throw heaps of money at this with solar hot water heaters and heat pump hot water heaters and non-ducted mini splits, and then just sort of leave everything as is without treating the building envelope. There's so much
sure.
money being tossed at adding roof insulation with absolutely no attention paid to air sealing. It's like unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we do right in the U.S. And it depends on our political landscape because that's always changing. But most states do have a weatherization assistance program for low income housing, and building envelope improvements are required.
Mm-hmm.
By that, you have to test, and a lot of the times they have to bring the leakage down 30% to get the funding. So it sounds
Nice.
like you guys could use a little bit
Who do
of
I talk
that
to? Who do I
approach.
talk to about that approach?
One organization, there's two organizations in the United States that really kind of work with that. One is BPI, the Building Performance Institute. The other one is BPA, the Building Performance Association. So, yeah, I mean, if you want, I'm happy to introduce you to some folks there, maybe just to see what it might be like to maybe start something up similar.
In the early 2000s. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy here. He's a buddy of mine, Xavier Walter, who works for BPA that kind of uh, does a lot of outreach for all 50 states just to kind of keep tabs of what's going on and just kind of help out there. He's kind of like the coordinator. So I think that might be a good start because he usually has a pretty good idea of what's going on and what's coming, what's changing, and why. So, yeah.
Yeah, just like that landscaper that has like the lawn that's super tall or whatever. The other day I went home and my front door was open, the back door was open, and the air conditioner and the furnace were all running. I thought, oh, it must be I'm in the shoulder speeds of.
Jeez.
Oh man.
Well,
Yeah, well, it sounds like a lot of the houses in Australia are just like that 100% of the time.
well, they do love their fresh air. So
Yeah.
this is one of
Yeah.
the things we get about when we say we want to seal buildings tighter. They say, well, we need fresh air, and we say, look, it's true. Actually, I've done testing up in Brisbane, and they do have their windows open a lot of the time. There's
Yeah,
nothing
Yeah.
saying you can't open your windows again if you want. And
sure.
actually now your cross breeze will actually work the way you want it to, the way it is on the diagram where the arrow comes in this way and
It's
goes,
coming from the right
yeah.
places. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whereas when it does get cold, and it does get chilly in Brisbane, you can close it and still be comfortable and not use a lot of energy.
Yeah, here I feel like nobody ever opens their windows. Like where I am, I'm in North Carolina, and so we kind of get all four seasons. And then in spring and fall, it's like both are pretty heavy allergy seasons. And so if you open up windows, you're just going to be sneezing. So I feel like no one just really even thinks to do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing, another reason why we want to mandate continuous ventilation,
Yeah,
because
filtered.
if it were filtered, I'd love it if it had heat recovery and was distributed to the living zones. I'd love that. But we got to start somewhere, which is actually 62.2 says you have to have a whole, or IRC says a whole dwelling unit ventilation or whole house ventilation that needs extraction or exhaust, supply, or a combination of these.
Yep,
So
balanced. Yeah,
it doesn't actually say what you need. It says you need
yeah.
one of these. It's your choice. And that's where we need to start here, which is, look, this is going to be a long process to get us all doing this. So let's start somewhere, which is you need ventilation. Okay, let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Well, I think it's better than it used to be because now there's just so many more ventilation products on the market than there used to be. And I'm not sure, I don't know what's available to Australia, but I know before I started at Retrotec, when I was kind of finishing up at Advanced Energy, we had a lot of tiny houses and stuff like that had to have whole house ventilation. And Panasonic had this great little ERV. It was like the size of a bath fan almost, that we could just kind of stick anywhere, and it worked really well. So
cool.
And it's only gotten better since.
Well,
so there's just more manufacturers popping up, more solutions coming up. So
yeah. So what we want to do is try to get this proposal for change into the Australian Building Codes Board as soon as possible, so that they can. And they do think this is a good idea. They know that the problem is there of underventilated apartments specifically, so they want to see this. And I say, look, we need to get it in there as soon as possible, so that for consideration, it won't be adopted, but it'll be just give a signal to the market. Hey, we might be doing this, so that it takes a long time to bring products from America to Australia, because you have to get, well, first of all, everything needs to be converted from 120 volt, 60 hertz to 30 volts and 50 hertz, and everything needs to be tested again. All the plugs need to be different. You need to all the different markings for sale in Australia. So it's not
And it may be
some.
that it doesn't have to come from the States. A lot of this stuff is manufactured in Southeast Asia.
Yeah,
So, I
well,
mean,
what I mean is, the products, the IP is a lot of it from. So Panasonic North America has a lot of these great products that you're talking about, which I'm a big believer in Panasonic products myself. I've used them in my parents' houses before, but getting a new product, one of those good ones that I know, say like a Whisper Green or Whisper Ceiling fan from Panasonic, getting it here, it's not simple. It's, it costs $20,000-$30,000 just to get all the paperwork done for it to bring it here.
oh,
And
wow.
then it's not made in America. It's made in Malaysia or something, or Indonesia,
Sure.
and then brought here from there. But it's like the people that you want to talk to are not the people in Indonesia. They're the people in North America.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if it gets written in, to where it starts to get required, baby steps, and of course, not all at once. I feel like that's where we really see success, is where we really start to ease into it. If we create a demand, then I would think some of these manufacturers would want to make it easier.
Yep. Yeah. So we want to give a heads up to the industry as soon as possible so that they can say, okay, all right,
Yeah.
let's plan. We're going to bring 3 units or 3 different classes in here, and this is how soon we need to do that so that they can get
Yeah.
all their stuff in order.
Yeah, Sean, if you were like to time travel and go back in time, what kind of advice would you give your younger self about like the industry or approaches or things you've learned along the way?
I really like thinking about policy and industry organization. So I probably would have tried to get into bigger picture thinking earlier. So I remember many years ago, I went to an ABBA meeting when I lived in Boston, and I was just there. Like my boss said, "Yeah, you should come to this meeting." So I went to one, and it was Wagdi Ennis was there, who's one of the head people there, passed away a few years ago. I remember meeting him, and so it was in a boardroom in a high-rise in downtown Boston. Didn't really know what was going on, but then they were sort of laying the groundwork for all this progress with air barriers and airtightness testing, writing the language about air barrier materials and assemblies and systems. That is really, that framework made it into the International Building Code and then to the International Residential Code. So that hierarchy framework and sort of ecosystem, that sort of big picture thinking is it's what I'm into now. I'd love to have been into it sooner.
Yeah,
Sure.
nice.
So I'd encourage other people to do that. We want help once ATTMA starts to grow a bit with more testing required in Australia. Technical people, but also big picture thinkers to join us to really drive science-based change here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we didn't touch on is, you're kind of the guy for ATTMA there in Australia. What are you doing with other testers? How are you growing the amount of testers that are there? Are you providing training?
I do the training for ATTMA Australia, and there's someone doing training in ATTMA in New Zealand, which is great. We have a new trainer going on there. I'm training new people, and we have people. I just got a request yesterday. When's the next course? So scheduling the courses as we see demand. So we'll put one in a few months, and we're getting people to sign up. And it's things like little bits of change from now on. So NatHERS is National Home Energy Rating Scheme in Australia. It's like an energy certificate, energy model that you can do to show that your house, your design complies with the building code. You can't right now fiddle with the airtightness inputs on it. So the standard assumptions in the model give you about 8 air changes per hour, something like that. That's standard, and that's actually pretty close to the built average. But we find that, yeah, for the median, we did a study for CSIRO, actually 15 different testing companies with ATTMA to testing around in several states in Australia to get this data set. And the study was published last year, and we found the average airtightness was about 7 air changes per hour permeability. But that was the median as well. So 50% of them were doing better than the standard, than the assumptions in the model. So 50% of them are missing an opportunity to claim savings. and even more importantly, to do better. Like a lot of the things, even in the ones that were doing better, there was still some big stuff they were missing that they could easily remedy.
Yeah.
So if they're able to take credit for this, then they can start going after those savings, improving the building envelope. Every time you improve air tightness, there's an opportunity to pay attention to water tightness and weatherproofing, and then raise awareness of other building envelope problems like thermal bridging. So improving air tightness
Sure.
sort of unlocks a whole thing of building enclosure awareness.
And are your training offerings then on the ATTMA website, published on there, or how do people find out about, or how do they get in contact with you and find out about future events and things like that?
So they if you just Google ATTMA Australia, Training Australia, there'll be a link to the listings. Right now they're on Eventbrite. We might switch to a different one for next course. But yeah, it'll be listed on Google. Be able to sign up for it there.
Perfect, yeah. And then you guys use the same lodgement system as ATTMA UK, like everything goes in the same database, so it's all maintained by them and everything. Like,
So we have an agreement with them that the data goes to their server, gets checked for quality. Like if your R squared is below 0.98, no go. It's less than ISO 9972 requires. If your N is below 0.5 or above 1.0, no good. So stuff like, it's just some pretty simple checks about data quality. So it works right now pretty well. So that's where we can get all our data. We did a study for CSIRO, which is similar to it's Commonwealth Science and Research something organization that is similar to one of the national labs in the US. And we use the ATTMA lodgement database as the data collection tool because it collects all the data in a very systematic way and reports all the data, and it's all made into a very easy to use database, exportable to them for analysis. So it's really easy. Great data collection tool. So that's absolutely something that America should do. ResNet, BPI should be doing.
If you're a homeowner looking to go buy a house, it should be easy to find what that blower door number was. Just kind of see what you're getting into.
Yeah, one thing
to make it more. It shouldn't be under lock and key like it is.
So one thing I want to do going forward, I'm actually going to ATTMA in the UK in 2 weeks, and one of the things I want to push for is getting rCloud to communicate directly with ATTMA lodgement, so that you can upload your results.
That's probably on us really more than ATTMA really. That's probably
well,
and we're working on like a new version of rCloud that most likely would be because we already do with Fantastic upload test results into the lodgement system, so we already kind of know that the platform.
It's actually not very difficult to do. So you just need to match all the fields so that it's all in XML format. So you just need the right tags. You just need to know how to sort which data point to which bucket. Yep, it's pretty easy. So that's something we should.
Yeah, just as we're talking here, I was thinking about that the newer software and making sure that happens. Really, pretty valuable and everything.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so yeah, some things we can work on, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
I definitely appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and everything. Like, do you have any more questions for us that you wanted, like, while you have us on the line, like to?
I guess, yeah. One of the things, well, maybe I already asked the question, which is, how do you keep track of what's the status in different states? Because I'm always.
Yeah, so we do have like our own central document that we work with when we're, like Sam mentioned, like we attend a lot of conferences around the US and stuff. So like we have people coming from all over the place, and that's usually how we get the insight. And then it's those people working those shows and everything to help us keep this kind of centralized Google document, spreadsheets and stuff that we have that track what's going on.
I bet it would be pretty easy if you're at ResNet conference to have a sign-up sheet, like a survey, say, is blower door testing required in your jurisdiction? What state are you in? And then just everyone answers, and pretty soon you should be able to fill out line for every 50 states, all the states.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to have one of these future sessions, when they have the live reader boards that you can interact with your phone and stuff like that. It'd be kind of fun.
Really.
Yeah.
Great.
And I was also, since you're from Boston, I was wondering if you ever made it to the building science summer camps from Joe Stubach.
Been a couple times, and that's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, both times I had to drive, so I didn't get to drink nearly as much as I would love to. But here I am. I still kick myself for, I can't remember what the question was, but I remember thinking, wow, Sean, John Straub. You get to talk to John Straub person to person. And so I'm holding a beer and John Straub's holding his beer. And I ask him a question that in retrospect is so obvious. I'm thinking, Sean, you get to talk to one of the building science gods and you ask him the dumbest question ever. What a missed opportunity. So yeah, it's great to be there with all those really awesome people. So I saw Colin Genge there, Gary Nelson from TEC, Terry Brennan, who's, I don't know if you remember him. He's retired now, but really awesome tester who's done a lot of U.S. Government buildings. Yeah, just all the greats there. It's really awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
Good food.
Yeah, definitely.
Good food.
Man, fabulous food.
It's still going. I don't think they haven't released the invitations yet for this year, but I would expect them to.
Yeah, just around. I got some insider information just around the corner. I guess I heard.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, we appreciate enjoy the rest of your day there, and once again,
thanks again for hopping on.
Yeah, we hope to run into you at one of these events or something like that.
You know what I should say? I want to do a review about fog machines.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I've been.
Hopefully, you have one of our new air tracers there somewhere.
But so one of the ones that I say, an affordable one for people is this is just available on Amazon. Smoke S, a fog machine. It's
looks like a hand grenade, but
it works pretty well. But I gotta say, the one that you guys have made is definitely the best because
awesome,
to do real precision diagnostics with leaks, you want a very slow, low flow rate. So smoke tool,
the air tracer,
does the best job. It's great. So
awesome,
cool.
I'd highly recommend.
Glad it's working for you.
Appreciate the plug,
yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, we'll look out for that video from you hopefully soon.
Cool. All right, guys.
Well, good.
Yeah,
man.
awesome.
Yeah, thanks again for the chat, and hopefully, in the near future, we can meet up in person somehow.
Yeah, I'd love to
get you over here for ResNet.
Oh yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
And we'll let you know about the when the podcast will be released and everything. We'll shoot you a quick email or whatever. Stay in touch and everything. Make sure that we can kind of work together on some of this stuff and kind of push things forward. It'd be awesome, really.
Great.
Sure.
All right, guys.
Yeah. You know how to get a hold of us, so we're happy to help in any way we can.
Awesome.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.